Here is our game, and it's looking pretty good so far. We got the graphics going on, so that if we click on the buttons, it shows what I chose, it shows what the computer chose. And the next step is we want to add a score. And based on whether you won, we want the player score to go up, and we'll place it right here. And if the player loses, then we want the computer score to go up. And of course, if we tie, then neither score should go up. So how can we do this? Well, we need to be able to save the score value somewhere. And in order to do that, well, we need to use a variable, because variables are the only place you can store data. Right? We have three fundamental building blocks of computer programs. We have loops, branches, and variables. Loops are so that you can repeat a block of code however many times you want. A branch is so that you can make a decision, and a variable so that you could save a value. So here we want to save a value, so we want to keep the player score and we want to keep the computer score. So when we think about the variable, what we want to think about is, okay, do we want to make it global or do we want to make it local? Well, if you think about it, we would need to create the variable inside of a function if we wanted to make it local. So if we did, we would need to do something like this. We would say player score is equal to 0, right? Because that's how it first starts out. And then when they win, which is right down here, right, they win, then we're going to say player score is equal to player score plus 1. Right? So let's imagine this is our code. Right? We click on the screen, we set player score equal to 0, and it's decided that the player wins, so player score is incremented. So it's equal to 0 plus 1. Player score is equal to 1, because 0 plus 1 is equal to 1. Great. We click and play again. And what happens? Well, we create a player score variable. We set it equal to 0. And let's say the player wins again. Then it does player score is equal to player score plus 1. Well, what is player score? It's equal to 0, right? And player score is going to be equal to 1 still. So if we make player score local to click, it's always going to be equal to 1 if the player wins, because first we're setting it to 0, and then if they win, we're incrementing it by 1, so it's always going to be 1 if they win. That's not the way this should work, right? So what we need to do is we have to make it global for that reason. So I'm going to go ahead and take that guy out, put it right here, say player score is equal to 0 globally. I'm going to add him to my list here, player score of global variables. And now, just so that I could test it out, I'm going to go ahead and print it out down here in the console. Okay. So right after we print whether we won or lost, and we incremented our player score variable, well, right here, after the branch statement, I am going to print out player score. Okay. And we wouldn't want to print out player score here, because here is when we click on the screen. Right? Here is if we click on one of the buttons. Right? So we only want to print out the player score if we clicked on one of the buttons, not if we clicked on the screen. Okay, so that's why I put it right here. Let's go ahead and test this out. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not showing my screen here, but I lost 2 times, so my player score did not increment, so we're still at 0 and 0. Maybe I could choose paper. I tie, it's still 0. Scissors, I lose. Wow, I can't get a win. Okay, there we go. So now our win is 1. I lose, it stays at 1. I win again, it goes up to 2. So we win again, and it goes up to 3. And it looks like it's working. All right. So now what do we need to do? Well, what we want to do is when I first start the game, I want it to say player score and computer score down here at the bottom. And then when I click and I win, then I want my player score to go up by 1. But if I lose, I want the computer score to go up by 1. So how can we get that done? Right? How can we get it when we first start the game to say player score is equal to 0 right here? Well, where would we need to put the code that writes that onto the screen? Would we put it in the top of our function here, right? I mean, top of our program? Well, we could, and it would work, right? But the rule is that at the very top of your program, you have your imports. After that, you have your global variables listed, and that's it. From there, it should all be function definitions, and then at the very bottom, a call to main. So if we put our code right here, it would work, but it wouldn't follow the format that everybody has agreed on that writes Python programs. Okay, so we don't want to put it there. Do we want to put it in the click function definition? Well, when is the click function definition run? The click function definition is run when we click on the screen. So when I first start the game, if I put the code that writes the scores on the screen and click, it's not going to show the scores on the screen until I click on the screen. And that's not what we want, right? What we want is for the score to just be here right when I first start the game, 0, 0. So not in the click function definition. And draw rectangle, we could put it there, but actually draw rectangle is used to draw the boxes, not to draw the score, right? And so we're going to go ahead and put it here in main. All right, and let's see, where can we put it? Maybe we could put it right here after we draw a rectangle, and maybe we can say something like t.goTo. Let's see, okay, so I t.penned up right here, so I don't need to worry about penning up for this goto. So I'm going to do a goto, and I'm going to say -150. Go to the middle of the left side of the screen, and then I'm going to go -200 down towards the bottom. Then I'm going to do a t.write, one of these guys. And here I'm going to print out player score. Okay, and I'm going to run it. So I got my player score here at the bottom, right? And you know what I want it to do is actually be underlined, and below that to say the player score. So the way that you can make this text underlined is you can come right here and add an additional argument called underline. And if you do that, you'll notice here that player score is now underlined. Okay. So now I want to write that 0, so I'm going to copy that guy, paste it here, go down maybe 40, and I'm going to put a 0 in here. I'm going to run it again. Now the 0 I don't want to be underlined, right? So I'm going to come back over here, take this out, and I'm going to make this actually bigger. I'm going to do 40, 40. Run that again. And now we got player score. It looks like I need to space things out a little bit more, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to actually add 20 and add to 80 so I can get it towards the bottom of the screen. There we have player score. Okay, and now what we want to do next is get the computer score on the screen. But not only do we want to get the computer score on the screen, we also want to create a variable that is going to contain the computer score. And then of course we want all the logic to happen, so we want it to print out here in the console the player score and the computer score. Check to see that it works, right? Go ahead and play your game, see that it works correctly, that it does print out the correct player score and the correct computer score, and keeps track of those two things. And in the next video we're going to show how to write them onto the screen.